The science behind hot versus cold showers. What medical research actually says. Every single day, you step into the shower and make a decision that affects your cardiovascular system, immune response, hormonal balance, and even your brain chemistry. And chances are, you're making that decision based on comfort, not science. I spent weeks diving into medical journals, physiology textbooks, and clinical trials to find out what actually happens inside your body when water temperature changes. And what I found completely changed how I shower. This isn't about trends or biohacking fads. This is about peer-reviewed evidence. So let's talk about what really happens when hot or cold water hits your skin. Before we dive into hot versus cold, we need to understand one crucial concept: thermoregulation. Your body maintains a core temperature of approximately 37 degrees Celsius, or 98.6 Fahrenheit. This isn't random. It's the optimal temperature for enzymatic reactions, cellular metabolism, and organ function. According to Guyton and Hall's textbook of medical physiology, your hypothalamus acts like a biological thermostat, constantly monitoring and adjusting your core temperature. When external temperature changes, like stepping into a shower, your body launches a complex cascade of responses. Blood vessels constrict or dilate, sweat glands activate or shut down, hormones get released, heart rate changes. Even your white blood cells respond differently. And here's the fascinating part. These responses aren't just about temperature regulation. They trigger secondary effects throughout your entire system, effects that researchers have been studying for decades. So when we talk about hot versus cold showers, we're not just talking about preference, we're talking about deliberately triggering specific physiological responses. Let's examine what the research actually shows. Hot water physiology. Let's start with hot showers, typically defined in research as water between 38 to 42 degrees Celsius, or about 100 to 108 Fahrenheit. When hot water contacts your skin, specialized receptors called thermoreceptors send signals to your brain. Within seconds, your blood vessels begin vasodilation. They expand. This is documented extensively in the Journal of Applied Physiology. Your peripheral blood flow can increase by up to 60% during heat exposure. Why does this matter? Because increased blood flow delivers more oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and tissues. A 2012 study published in the Journal of Physiology found that passive heat exposure improved vascular function similarly to moderate exercise. Your endothelial cells, the lining of your blood vessels, literally function better after heat exposure. But there's more happening beneath the surface. Heat also activates your parasympathetic nervous system, what researchers call your rest and digest mode. A study in the International Journal of Hyperthermia showed that warm water immersion reduced cortisol levels by approximately 20 to 30%, while increasing serotonin and dopamine production. This is why hot showers feel psychologically relaxing. They're literally changing your brain chemistry. For muscle tension, the mechanism is well established. According to research in the Clinical Journal of Sports Medicine, heat increases tissue elasticity and reduces muscle spindle excitability. Translation: your muscles physically relax and pain signals decrease. That's why physical therapists use heat therapy for chronic muscle pain and stiffness. The sleep connection is particularly interesting. A meta-analysis published in Sleep Medicine Reviews in 2019 examined 17 studies and found that warm bathing 90 minutes before bed improved sleep quality and reduced sleep onset time by an average of 10 minutes. The mechanism involves core body temperature manipulation. Your body cools down after heating up, which signals your circadian system that it's time to sleep. For respiratory health, steam from hot showers has documented benefits. Research in the European Respiratory Journal shows that warm, humidified air helps loosen mucus, improves mucociliary clearance, and can provide temporary relief for conditions like sinusitis and bronchitis. Sounds almost too good to be true, right?
Well, that's because we haven't talked about the other side yet. Hot water risks. Here's where things get complicated and where most people make critical mistakes. The same heat that relaxes you can also damage you. Let's start with your skin. Your skin has a protective barrier called the stratum corneum, made of lipids and proteins. According to research published in the British Journal of Dermatology, water temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius progressively dissolve these natural lipids. A 2016 study in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology found that frequent hot water exposure significantly reduced skin barrier function, increased transepidermal water loss, and elevated skin pH. This creates a cascade: drier skin, increased inflammation, and higher susceptibility to conditions like eczema and dermatitis. Your hair faces similar challenges. The Journal of Cosmetic Science published research showing that hot water causes cuticle damage, increased porosity, and protein loss from hair shafts. Over time, this manifests as brittleness, split ends, and reduced structural integrity. But the cardiovascular effects are what medical professionals concern most. When you stand in a hot shower, your blood pressure initially drops as vessels dilate. A study in the American Journal of Cardiology documented blood pressure reductions of 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury during hot water exposure. For healthy individuals, this causes temporary lightheadedness at worst. However, for people with cardiovascular conditions, the picture changes dramatically. Research in the European Heart Journal warns that sudden heat exposure can trigger orthostatic hypotension, a rapid blood pressure drop that can cause syncope or fainting. The Japanese Journal of Public Health even documented increased cardiovascular events associated with very hot bathing, particularly in elderly populations. There's another mechanism at play. Hot water increases heart rate to compensate for vasodilation. According to the Journal of Human Hypertension, heart rate can increase by 15 to 20 beats per minute during hot water immersion. For someone with compromised cardiac function, this additional workload can be problematic. A 2018 systematic review in Circulation examined bathing-related deaths in Japan and found that prolonged hot bathing was associated with increased risk in individuals over 65, particularly those with hypertension or coronary artery disease. The duration matters too. Research suggests that showers exceeding 10 to 15 minutes at high temperatures progressively worsen these effects. Your body's compensatory mechanisms, sweating, increased heart rate, peripheral vasodilation, become strained. So the science is clear. Hot showers have real therapeutic benefits, but they come with legitimate risks that escalate with temperature, duration, and individual health status. Cold water physiology. Now let's examine the opposite end of the spectrum, cold showers, typically defined in research as water between 10 and 20 degrees Celsius, or about 50 to 68 Fahrenheit. When cold water hits your skin, your body's response is immediate and dramatic. First, vasoconstriction occurs. Your peripheral blood vessels rapidly constrict. This is a protective mechanism described in wilderness medicine textbooks. Your body prioritizes maintaining core temperature by reducing blood flow to the skin and extremities. According to research in the Journal of Applied Physiology, peripheral blood flow can decrease by up to 85% within the first minute of cold exposure. Simultaneously, your sympathetic nervous system activates. This is your fight-or-flight response. A landmark study published in PLOS I in 2016 by researchers at the Academic Medical Center in Amsterdam found that cold water immersion increased norepinephrine levels by up to 530% and dopamine by 250%. What does this mean practically? Increased alertness, improved focus, and elevated mood. The norepinephrine surge is why people report feeling wired and energized after cold exposure. It's not psychological, it's a measurable neurochemical change. The immune system effects are particularly fascinating. That same 2016 Dutch study, which included over 3,000 participants, found that people who took regular cold showers had a 29% reduction in sick leave from work compared to controls. The proposed mechanism involves increased white blood cell counts and enhanced immune surveillance. Research in the European Journal of Applied Physiology showed that regular cold exposure increased lymphocyte count, particularly natural killer cells and cytotoxic T lymphocytes, your body's primary defense against infections and abnormal cells. For metabolic effects, cold exposure activates brown adipose tissue, or brown fat. Unlike regular fat, brown fat burns calories to generate heat. A study in the Journal of Clinical Investigation found that regular cold exposure increased brown fat activity and improved insulin sensitivity. Some researchers believe this may have implications for metabolic health and weight management. The mental health research is equally compelling. A 2007 theoretical paper in Medical
Cold water risks. Because cold water exposure isn't universally beneficial, and for some people, it can be genuinely dangerous. The initial cold shock response is well documented in physiology literature. When you first encounter cold water, you experience involuntary gasping, hyperventilation, and increased heart rate. According to research published in Physiology and Behavior, heart rate can spike by 20 to 70 beats per minute within seconds of cold water contact. For healthy individuals, this is manageable, but for people with underlying cardiovascular conditions, this sudden cardiac stress can trigger arrhythmias or acute coronary events. A review in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports warns that cold water immersion increases cardiac workload and myocardial oxygen demand, potentially problematic for individuals with coronary artery disease. The respiratory response is equally significant. Cold water triggers what researchers call the cold shock response, an involuntary gasp followed by hyperventilation. Studies in respiratory physiology and neurobiology show this can cause breathing rates to increase threefold. For people with asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, this can trigger bronchospasm or acute exacerbations. Blood pressure effects are paradoxical. While hot water lowers blood pressure, cold water raises it, sometimes dramatically. Research in the American Journal of Physiology documented blood pressure increases of 20 to 30 mmHg during cold water immersion. For individuals with uncontrolled hypertension, this additional pressure could theoretically increase stroke risk. There's also an important concept called habituation. A study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that the stress response to cold water significantly decreased after 10 to 15 exposures. This means beginners experience much more intense physiological stress than regular practitioners. Jumping into cold showers without gradual adaptation can overwhelm your system. Timing and context matter immensely. Research shows that cold exposure during acute illness can suppress immune function when your body is already fighting infection. A study in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that cold stress during viral infection prolonged illness duration in some cases. And here's something most people don't consider: individual variation. Genetic studies published in Nature have identified variations in genes like UCP1 that affect how people respond to cold exposure. Some individuals naturally tolerate cold better and derive more benefits, while others experience predominantly negative effects. The temperature also matters. Research distinguishes between cool, 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, cold, 10 to 20 degrees Celsius, and very cold, less than 10 degrees Celsius. Most benefits are seen in the cold range, but most risks escalate in the very cold range. The evidence-based approach. So with all this conflicting information, what should you actually do? Let's look at what the research consensus suggests. First, understand that hot and cold water trigger fundamentally different physiological states. According to a comprehensive review in the Journal of Physiological Sciences, hot water activates parasympathetic dominance, relaxation, recovery, and restoration. Cold water activates sympathetic dominance, alertness, activation, and arousal. This means timing is everything. For evening showers, research supports using warm water. A 2019 meta-analysis in Sleep Medicine Reviews specifically recommends bathing 1 to 2 hours before bed at temperatures between 40 to 42.5 degrees Celsius for 10 to 15 minutes to optimize sleep quality. The mechanism involves the subsequent drop in core body temperature after warming, which promotes sleep onset. For morning showers, evidence supports cooler temperatures. The norepinephrine and cortisol elevation from cold water aligns with your natural circadian rhythm. A study in Chronobiology International found that cold exposure in the morning enhanced circadian alignment and improved daytime alertness. For athletic recovery, the protocol matters. Research in sports medicine recommends cold water immersion at 10 to 15 degrees Celsius for 10 to 15 minutes within 1 to 4 hours post-exercise for optimal recovery benefits. Longer or colder doesn't necessarily mean better. There's actually evidence that excessive cold can impair muscle protein synthesis and long-term adaptations. For skin and hair health, dermatological research recommends water temperatures no higher than 37 to 38 degrees Celsius, body temperature to slightly above, and limiting shower duration to under 10 minutes. A study in the International Journal of Dermatology found these parameters minimized skin barrier disruption while maintaining cleansing effectiveness. Contrast therapy, alternating hot and cold, has its own evidence base. Research in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine suggests alternating 3 to 4 minutes warm with 1 minute cold, repeated 3 to 4 times, may provide combined benefits of vasodilation and vasoconstriction. This vascular gymnastics potentially improves circulation more than either temperature alone. However, a critical point from the literature, gradual adaptation is essential. The Dutch cold shower study used a protocol starting with just 30 seconds of cold water at the end of a warm shower, gradually increasing over weeks. This minimizes shock responses and allows physiological adaptation. Medical contraindications are clearly established in the literature. Avoid cold showers if you have uncontrolled hypertension, cardiac arrhythmias, severe asthma, or Raynaud's syndrome. Avoid very hot showers if you have cardiovascular disease, pregnancy complications, or severe dermatological conditions. In doubt, consult your physician. Individual medical context always supersedes general recommendations. Practical protocol. Based on the cumulative evidence, here's a science-based approach you can actually implement. Start with your baseline. For general daily showers, use warm water around 37 to 40 degrees Celsius, comfortable but not steaming. This provides cleansing benefits without skin barrier disruption. Keep duration under 10 minutes, as research shows skin damage increases with prolonged exposure. If you want to experiment with cold exposure, use the progressive protocol from the research. Start with your normal warm shower, then end with 30 seconds of cool water. Not ice cold, just uncomfortably cool. Do this for 1 week. Week 2, drop the temperature slightly and extend to 60 seconds. By week 4, you can work up to 2 to 3 minutes at genuinely cold temperatures if you tolerate it well. Listen to your body's signals. Research identifies warning signs. If you experience chest pain, severe shortness of breath, extreme dizziness, or prolonged shivering, stop immediately. These aren't signs of adaptation, these are signs of excessive stress. For specific goals, adjust your protocol. For sleep optimization, research supports warm showers 90 minutes before bed. For morning energy, end your shower with 1 to 2 minutes of cold water. For post-workout recovery, use 10 to 15 minutes of cold immersion within a few hours of intense exercise. For skin health, use lukewarm water and limit time. And here's something most people miss. Your shower is just a tool. The Journal of Clinical Medicine emphasizes that temperature therapy works best alongside other healthy behaviors: adequate sleep, proper nutrition, regular exercise, and stress management. There's no magic bullet, but strategic use of temperature can support your overall health protocol. Conclusion. Here's what the science tells us. Both hot and cold water create real, measurable changes in your body. Neither is universally superior. They're tools with different applications. Hot water promotes relaxation, sleep, muscle recovery, and stress reduction, but excessive heat damages skin, hair, and can strain your cardiovascular system. Cold water enhances alertness, immune function, athletic recovery, and metabolic health, but sudden exposure can shock your system and poses risks for certain medical conditions. The evidence doesn't support extremes, it supports intentionality. Use temperature as a deliberate intervention based on your specific goals, health status, and timing. Your daily shower is an experiment running on a sample size of 1. You. Pay attention to how your body responds. Track your energy, sleep quality, skin condition, and recovery. Adjust based on results, not trends. If you want to explore the research yourself, I've compiled the key studies in the description below. And if you found this valuable, leave a comment sharing your experience with hot or cold showers. I read every single one. Subscribe if you want more evidence-based health content that cuts through the noise. I'll see you in the next video.